Good morning, folks. Hopefully I'm coming through loud and clear. What a cracking day today. So yesterday, we're still on our episode and series of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Dr. Susan Jeffers. And yesterday we spoke about different types of fear, the level 1 fears, which is basically the fears of those that can happen to you and those that require action. For example, aging. I mean, that happens to you regardless. Require action, well, changing a career because you've done something. Level 2 fears, things that are really non-situation orientated, so like rejection or being helpless. Morning, Alana, how are you? And then the level 3 fears, it's the pinnacle moment. Morning, Mary. Morning, Craig. And the level 3 fears are really down to the fact that I can't handle it. And everything came down to the fact that, really, I can't handle it. And that's all it is. And if you knew you could handle anything that came your way, what possibly would you have to fear? Well, the answer was nothing. So we'll just pick up on that again and see where we were. So you're probably not jumping up and down by the revelation yesterday that the answer is nothing. What would you possibly have to fear? Nothing itself. But I'll tell you a great piece of news. It means you can handle your fears without having to control anything in your outside world. I mean, to me, it's a tremendous relief. You know you no longer have control of what your friends do or what you do or anything like that, and what your children do. And what your boss does as well. You don't have to control what happens all the time, every time in an interview, for example, or what happens in your job. All you have to do is diminish your fear. And this is the important point. All you have to do is really diminish your fear and to develop more trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. And I'll say that again. All you have to do is diminish your fear and to develop more trust in your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Now, I'm really belittling the point but it's so critical. And from this moment on, every time you feel afraid, remind yourself that it's because you're not feeling good enough about yourself. Then proceed to use one of the tools that will help you in this process. So you've got your task clearly mapped out. I often explain that it's so little about trusting ourselves. And I know that some fear is instinctual and healthy and keeps us alert to trouble. The rest is part of the whole, what holds us back in our personal growth, I suppose. And it's inappropriate and destructive. And perhaps it can be blamed on our social conditioning. Morning, Margaret. I mean, when you think about all my life and think about this is what I found about this book was it's quite an eye-opener. And I always thought, God, didn't he tell me I've been doing it wrong all this time? Well, there's no right or wrong. All you know is what you know just now, and if you can change it for the better, if that makes sense, then you just need to do the right thing. So all my life I've heard my mother call out to me when I used to go off for school. She never used to say to me, "Take risks today." But more likely she used to say things like, "Be careful." And be careful really carries this double message. The world is really a dangerous thing out there, when you think about the logic, and you won't be able to handle it. And it's amazing how many times we say that. I mean, I say that myself sometimes to my children. You know, be careful. You're really conveying the message that, you don't think they can handle anything. And it's a real eye-opener and a real revelation you have to come to terms with. And it sometimes happens to you. And you won't be able to handle it. You see, my mum was only really passing on her lack of trust in her ability to handle the things that comes her way. And that's how we've been taught and socially conditioned. I mean, I can remember desperately wanting a motorbike when I was younger. I really wanted a motorbike, and that was a big, big thing for me. Now, my mother went through her father crashing on a motorbike at 25 years old. and almost never been able to walk again. And he was more or less a cripple for the rest of his life as a result of that. And he had real difficulty later on in his life walking. So my mother was terrified the day I announced I wanted a motorbike. But my father got out, my father went out and bought it with me. My mother was furious when I came back with this motorbike. I think my dad hid for a wee while, so he wouldn't get the blame for helping me with it. But she was terrified at what would happen to me. And I know she loved me that much. But it conveyed the message that she didn't really trust me enough to actually handle the motorbike, if that made sense, without actually saying it. Now, she was overprotective and maybe sensitive. But I think that's what actually conveys in this whole process. And it's about self-doubt, I suppose. And it's the approach to analyse the process about where it comes from and why people say that. Now, the most important thing I used to tell my children when they went to school, I never really used to tell them, work hard. I used to tell them, do your best. Now, this was all born out of the fact that, I go back to being analytical about it and thinking, if you say be careful to everybody all the time, you are conveying the message that you don't trust them. But you don't realise you're saying that. You're just overprotective for them and you're looking after them. The more message that you need to convey is the fact that, I suppose, it's do your best. So if you do your best every single day and you tell people to do their best every single day, can never fail at anything. Well, no, not really, because they do their best every single day. So I think the most important message to convey is whatever happens, given the situation, you need to tell them they can handle it. And you need to tell yourself you can handle it. Now, I hear the doubting Thomases out there saying, oh, come on, how can you handle paralysis or death or cancer and anything like that? And I understand your scepticism. Remember, I was once a doubting Thomas myself. Give yourself a winning chance and use the tools provided that we talk about throughout this whole series. As you do, you'll find yourself coming closer and closer to such a high level of self-confidence that you'll ultimately begin to realise that you can handle anything that comes your way. Never let these 3 little words out of your mind. And this is the most important thing of anything. Always remember this. Don't let these 3 little words out of your mind every single day. And it's possibly the most important 3 little words that you'll ever hear. I'll handle it. And keep telling yourself every single time, I will handle it. I will handle it. Maybe some of you are saying that to yourself right now. I will handle it. And I'll see you tomorrow at 7:30.